One of the first compositions I ever wrote was called Opis Miz and Fee Quay. In fact, I wrote them both around the same time while I was at Berkeley. And it was interesting because at that time you would write music and you got to hear it being played by an ensemble that was also a class. Well, I was pretty lucky with these two compositions to be able to actually get it recorded by the recording class. And the recording class has some of the best players at Berkeley at that time. That was like 1976, 77, 75. So I wrote Opis Miz as one of my tunes. I wanted to try and overemphasize the concept of the saxophone solely. And then I wanted to, of course, in both of my compositions, Fee Quay and Opis Miz, I wanted to try and do this was to incorporate a more rock. I don't want to call it funk because it's definitely not funk, but I wanted to create a composition that sort of implied jazz but wasn't jazz. So with this piece, I had this concept of the sax soli, but then I also wanted to create, as I try to do with most of my compositions, was to try and create a sense of something that's not normal. There's a uniqueness to what it is that I'm doing. So in this work, around the middle section of it, I'm alternating between 5/4 and 4/4, and then when it modulates, I go into 4/4 and 5/4, and these were the kinds of things that I did when I tried to write music, and this is what inspired me, is what moved me. I wanted to be very, very creative. I didn't want to follow the techniques that were taught in class. We were taught how to write a sax soli line. Well, when you listen to this, the sax soli line is a little bit different than what they call line writing, or where every individual sax melody should work by itself as well as within the ensemble. But if you were to play the lines individually, they probably wouldn't stand on their own. However, within the context of the other 5 saxophones, it works pretty well. I think what I want to do is I want you to hear that recording in 1977, played by an ensemble that included John Lockwood, Kenwood Denard, Jamie Glazer, and a bunch of other really, really fine musicians who were students at the time at Berkeley at the same time as I was. So the first thing I'm going to do is to play the Opis Miz rendition that was played back in 1977. And then I want to play the version that I did here on my War Stories album. And then I'll talk a little bit about that. And in the War Stories album is interesting. I had Mike Stern take... Interesting, with the War Stories album, I had Mike Stern take the solo during our recording session, and also I had Ernie Denoff do a guitar solo. And for those of you who know Mike Stern, he has a very, very unique sound. I remember when we did the session, he brought in 2 SPX 90s and had his guitar in a stereo field, and just a really, really cool sound. So he played on Opis Miz and Fee Quay. What he did on Fee Quay seemed to work. It worked really well. But the different versions we did for Opis Miz, there was just a sense of rawness that I was missing. So I had Ernie Denoff do a solo also on Opis Miz, and it turns out to be the exact thing that I was looking for. And Ernie plays really, really well. So we'll first take a listen to Opis Miz done in 1976, and then I'll do the version from the War Stories album. Just a little bit of a warning that this is from an old cassette, so the signal to noise ratio is a bit skewed. There's a huge hiss, but you get a feel for the tune. So now here's the version off of the War Stories album. This is with Vinnie Colaiuta and Tim Landers and Rich Ruttenberg at Rumble Studios in California. This is really a cool section of the 5/4 solo, and Jeff, the percussionist, just came up with all kinds of great ideas. And the melodic line by Rob Williams, he came up with that himself as well. Really nice job. This is where we move into the alternating between 4/4 and 5/4. So coming up, I do a reintroduction of the initial bass melody. But this time, instead of being in straight 5, it's in a 5/4 kind of time.